What would you do if you heard an employee tell a customer to go back to Africa? One CEO's shocking undercover discovery led him to shut down his entire restaurant on the spot. Before we dive in, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you. Let us get back to the story now. Marcus Washington adjusted his well-worn baseball cap, pulling it lower over his eyes. He studied his reflection in the car's rearview mirror, barely recognizing himself. Gone were the tailored suits and polished appearance that had graced the covers of business magazines. In their place stood a man in faded jeans, a simple gray t-shirt, and work boots that had seen better days. He'd even grown out his beard and traded his designer glasses for an older, less distinctive pair. Perfect. No one would recognize him as the founder and CEO of Southern Comfort Kitchen, a restaurant chain that had grown from a single family-owned location to 37 restaurants across the South in just under a decade. Marcus took a deep breath as he stared at the Savannah, Georgia location of his restaurant. This particular branch had been one of his most successful, consistently earning top ratings and generating impressive revenue. Until recently. For the past 6 months, customer reviews had plummeted. Complaints about service had tripled. And despite his management team's assurances that they were handling the situation, nothing seemed to be improving. Sometimes you have to see things with your own eyes, Marcus muttered to himself, repeating his grandmother's favorite saying, which is exactly why Marcus had arranged to work as Mark, a new employee being trained in various positions throughout the restaurant. Only the regional HR director knew his true identity, having arranged the paperwork and backstory. As Marcus approached the restaurant, he noticed the once immaculate exterior now showed signs of neglect. Planters that should have been bursting with seasonal flowers contained only withered stems. The windows, which Marcus had always insisted be spotlessly clean, were smudged with fingerprints. Small details, but telling ones. Taking another steadying breath, Marcus pushed open the door and stepped inside. The lunch rush was in full swing, with most tables occupied by tourists and locals alike. The noise level was high, a good sign, but something about the energy felt off. Several customers looked annoyed, checking watches or trying to flag down servers who seemed to be deliberately avoiding eye contact. "Can I help you?" The hostess, a young black woman whose name tag read Jasmine, approached with a professional smile that seemed genuine. "I'm Mark," he said, using the alias he'd created. "Starting today, I was told to ask for Diane." Recognition flashed across Jasmine's face. "Oh, right. Diane mentioned we have someone new starting. She's in the back office. I could take you there." As Jasmine led him through the dining area, Marcus took mental notes. The decor needed refreshing. Several tables had wobbly legs stabilized by folded napkins. The Southern Comfort Kitchen brand had been built on a foundation of quality and attention to detail, both clearly lacking here. "Diane," Jasmine called, knocking on a partially open office door. "The new trainee is here." A harried-looking woman in her 50s glanced up from her computer screen, reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. Right, Cinnamon." Jasmine gave Marcus an encouraging smile before returning to her post. Diane barely looked at Marcus as she shuffled through a stack of papers. "Mark, was it? I've got your paperwork here somewhere." "Ah, here we go." She pushed a folder toward him. "We're short-staffed today, again, so we're throwing you right into the deep end. You'll shadow Karen today, our most experienced server. She's worked here since we opened." Marcus nodded, secretly pleased. An experienced server who'd been there since the beginning would have valuable insights. "Karen," Diane called out, stepping into the hallway. "Your shadow's here." A tall, thin woman with bleached blonde hair, pulled into a tight ponytail, appeared in the doorway. She looked to be in her late 40s, with deep lines etched around her mouth that suggested she didn't smile often. Her eyes swept over Marcus with undisguised disappointment. "Another one?" Karen sighed dramatically. "How long is this one going to last, Diane? I've trained 3 people in the past 2 months." "Just show him the ropes, Karen," Diane said wearily. "He's got experience, so it shouldn't be too painful." Karen's eyes narrowed as she looked Marcus up and down again. "Fine. Come on, newbie. Try to keep up." Without waiting for a response, she turned and marched toward the dining area. Marcus followed, already gaining insight into the problematic dynamics at play. The next hour was a whirlwind as Karen moved at a punishing pace through the restaurant, barely explaining anything as she went. She barked orders, cut off Marcus's questions, and made it clear she considered training him an unwelcome burden. But Marcus was more concerned with how she treated the customers. Table 7 needs their check, he noted, seeing a family trying to get Karen's attention. They can wait, Karen snapped. Table 12 just got seated, and they're regulars. They tip well. She grabbed 2 menus and headed for a well-dressed older couple who had just arrived. Marcus watched as she transformed before his eyes. Her stiff posture softened, her tone became warm and friendly, and she even laughed at the husband's joke that wasn't particularly funny. "How are my favorite customers today?" Karen cooed. "The usual drinks?" "Martin, I remember you like your tea with extra lemon." The contrast was jarring. With these customers, Karen was attentive and charming. But when she returned to the kitchen, her face immediately hardened back into a scowl. "These tickets are taking forever, DeAndre," she snapped at a young black chef who was working furiously at the grill. "What's the holdup?" "I'm down a line cook, Karen," DeAndre replied calmly, never taking his eyes off the plates he was preparing. "Doing my best here." "Well, your best isn't good enough," she muttered, loud enough for everyone in the kitchen to hear. Marcus noticed how the kitchen staff exchanged glances but remained silent. This wasn't new behavior. As the lunch rush continued, Marcus observed Karen's pattern. She provided stellar service to certain tables, mostly older, white customers who appeared affluent, while giving minimal attention to others. The disparity became painfully obvious when a black family of 4 was seated in Karen's section. "You take this one," Karen told Marcus, handing him menus. "I've got too many tables already." Marcus glanced around. Karen had no more tables than any other server, but he didn't argue. Instead, he welcomed the opportunity to interact directly with customers. "Welcome to Southern Comfort Kitchen," Marcus greeted the family warmly. "I'm Mark. I'll be taking care of you today, along with Karen." The parents smiled back, though Marcus noticed a certain wariness in their eyes that he recognized all too well, the slight tension of black people entering spaces where they weren't sure they'd be welcomed. "Is this your first time dining with us?" Marcus asked as he handed out menus. "Yes," the father replied. "We're visiting from Chicago. Heard this place had authentic Southern cooking." "Well, you heard right," Marcus said with genuine pride. "Our shrimp and grits is something special. Chef DeAndre makes the best in Savannah." He took their drink orders and headed back to the server station where Karen was watching him with narrowed eyes. "Don't waste your time being chatty," she said. "Those people never tip well anyway." Marcus froze, the coded racism in her statement unmistakable. "Those people." Karen rolled her eyes. "You know what I mean. Just get their drinks and move on." Table 14 needs attention. The Martins always order dessert. Marcus felt a familiar heat rising in his chest. The same heat he'd felt countless times throughout his life when confronted with casual racism. But he reminded himself why he was here. To observe, to understand, to fix the broken culture that was destroying the restaurant he'd built. So he bit his tongue and got the family's drinks. Throughout the afternoon, Marcus watched as Karen continued her pattern of selective service. She was all smiles and attention for certain customers while barely acknowledging others. The black family, in particular, had to request refills multiple times, and when they asked about dessert options, Karen gave them a cursory description without the enthusiastic recommendations she offered other tables. When the family finally left, the mother made a point of finding Marcus. "Thank you for making us feel welcome," she said quietly. The food was delicious. She handed him a tip directly, a $20 bill, before walking out with her family. Karen, who had watched the exchange from across the room, approached him as he pocketed the money. "See? Told you they'd tip you." "They always tip the black servers better," she said, as if sharing some insider wisdom. "It's like they feel obligated or something." Marcus stared at her, momentarily speechless. Or maybe they appreciated good service, he finally managed. Karen snorted. "Yeah, right. Look, Mark, if you're going to last here, you need to learn which tables are worth your time. It's just how it works." Before Marcus could respond, A commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A customer was complaining loudly to Jasmine about waiting too long for his check. "I've been trying to pay for 20 minutes, the man exclaimed. "What kind of place is this?" Marcus recognized him as one of Karen's customers, a middle-aged black man dining alone who had been seated in the corner. Karen muttered under her breath and made no move to address the situation. So Marcus quickly stepped in. "I'm so sorry, sir," he said, approaching the customer. "Let me get your check right away." "Don't bother," the man said, his face flushed with anger. "I already left cash on the table. But you people lost my business for good." As the man stormed out, Marcus turned to Karen. "That was your table. Why didn't you bring him his check?" Karen shrugged. "He was on his phone. Didn't want to interrupt." "He was on his phone when you seated him," Marcus pointed out. "You had no problem interrupting him then." Karen's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Look, newbie, don't tell me how to do my job. I've been working here since before you were probably born. I'm just trying to understand the protocol," Marcus said, keeping his voice level. "Because it seems like some customers get better service than others." "Some customers deserve better service than others," Karen shot back. "That's how the real world works." The more Marcus observed, the clearer the picture became. Karen wasn't just a difficult employee. She was actively discriminating against certain customers. And as the senior server who trained all new staff, she was setting the tone for the entire front-of-house operation. Near the end of the lunch shift, a group of young black professionals arrived. They were well-dressed and clearly coming from a business meeting. Karen, who was supposed to be showing Marcus the reservation system, immediately stiffened. "Great," she muttered. "The back corner should be fine for them." "The back corner?" Marcus questioned. "There are several open booths by the windows." "Those are reserved," Karen said quickly. Marcus glanced at the reservation screen. "I don't see any reservations for the next hour." Karen's jaw tightened. "They're just better for families," she insisted. "The booth in the back is where we usually seat, you know." "No, I don't know," Marcus said, his patience wearing thin. "Why don't you explain it to me?" Karen looked around and lowered her voice. "Look, I'm just saying those people tend to be louder, and they make other customers uncomfortable. It's better for everyone if they're seated in the back." Marcus felt his blood pressure rising. "Those people? You mean black customers?" Karen rolled her eyes. "Don't make this about race. It's about knowing your clientele and making business decisions. If you're going to be so sensitive about every little thing, maybe this isn't the job for you." Jasmine, who had been quietly listening nearby, appeared visibly uncomfortable but remained silent. Marcus wondered how many times she'd heard comments like this and had to swallow her reactions to keep her job. "I'll seat them," Jasmine finally offered, stepping forward. "Fine," Karen huffed. "But don't give them the window booths. Diane will back me up on this." Marcus watched as Jasmine led the group to a table, not in the back corner as Karen had insisted, but not at the coveted window booths either. A compromise that spoke volumes about the daily navigation of racism Jasmine likely faced. During a brief lull, Marcus found his way to the kitchen, where DeAndre was prepping for the dinner shift. Despite the hectic pace, the chef station was meticulously organized, his movements efficient and precise. "How long have you been working here?" Marcus asked casually. "About 2 years," DeAndre replied, not looking up from the vegetables he was chopping. "Started as a line cook, worked my way up." "You like it?" DeAndre hesitated, his knife pausing mid-chop. "The cooking? Love it. This place?" He shrugged. "It has its challenges." "Like Karen?" Marcus ventured. DeAndre glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "Look, man, I keep my head down and do my job. But yeah, Karen. Been here forever. Thinks she runs the place. Seems like she treats certain customers differently than others," Marcus observed. DeAndre gave him a knowing look. "You notice it already, huh?" Fast learner. He returned to his chopping. "Most of us just try to make up for it when we can. Extra touches on the plates for the tables she neglects. Jasmine makes sure they get seated quickly. We do what we can." Marcus nodded, his respect for the young chef growing. "Has anyone ever complained? To management, I mean?" DeAndre snorted. "Diane's been here almost as long as Karen. They're tight, and the district manager only shows up once a month to check the numbers." As long as the revenue hits targets, nobody from corporate seems to care about how we get there. The conversation gave Marcus additional insight. The problem wasn't just Karen. It was a management structure that enabled her behavior and provided no accountability. As the dinner shift began, the restaurant grew busier. Marcus continued shadowing Karen, watching as she maintained her pattern of selective service with even more dramatic disparities during the higher-priced dinner service. The breaking point came when a black couple was seated in Karen's section. They were celebrating an anniversary, as they happily announced when Karen approached their table. "Congratulations," Karen said flatly, handing the menus. "Specials are on the board. I'll give you a minute." She walked away without offering drinks or the anniversary champagne that Marcus had seen her suggest to another celebrating couple just 20 minutes earlier. "Shouldn't we offer them the anniversary special?" Marcus asked when they were back at the service station. "Like you did for table 9? "They probably won't want it," Karen said dismissively. "It's expensive. Shouldn't we let them decide that?" Marcus pressed. Karen turned to face him fully, her patience clearly gone. "Look, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I know what I'm doing. If you think you know better, maybe you should go back to wherever you came from and do it your way there." Marcus stood his ground. "And where exactly do you think I came from?" Karen's eyes hardened. "I don't know. Africa? Does it matter? Point is, this is how we do things here. This is America. If you don't like it, go back to where things are done your way." The restaurant seemed to go quiet, though in reality, only those nearest to them had heard Karen's outburst. Jasmine stood frozen by the hostess stand, her eyes wide. A busboy had stopped mid-clear, a stack of dirty plates in his hands. Marcus took a slow, deep breath. He had heard variations of "go back to Africa" throughout his life, from elementary school playgrounds to college campuses to corporate boardrooms where people didn't realize he was the owner until he spoke up. He had developed a thick skin and a measured response. But hearing it in his own restaurant, that was something else entirely. "I'm from Atlanta, actually," Marcus said calmly. "Born and raised in Georgia, just like you, I imagine." Karen had the decency to look momentarily flustered, but she quickly recovered. "You know what I meant." "Yes," Marcus said. "Unfortunately, I know exactly what you meant." Before the situation could escalate further, a crash from the kitchen drew everyone's attention. A server had dropped a tray of glasses, and the momentary crisis provided a welcome diversion. Karen turned away, muttering something under her breath about oversensitive people, and went to check on her favored customers. Marcus stood motionless, processing what had just happened and considering his next move. He had planned to spend at least 2 days undercover, working different shifts to get a complete picture. But what he'd witnessed in just 1 day was more than enough. The racism wasn't subtle or unconscious. It was blatant and deliberate, and it had clearly been going on for years, poisoning the culture of a restaurant he had founded on principles of hospitality and welcome for all. As a black business owner, Marcus had faced countless obstacles building Southern Comfort Kitchen into a successful chain. He had navigated skeptical banks, prejudiced suppliers, and customers who doubted his understanding of Southern cuisine despite his family's deep roots in Georgia going back generations. He had created this business as a testament to his grandmother's legacy and her belief that good food could bring all kinds of people together. And now, in one of his flagship locations, a server was telling customers who looked like him, who looked like his family, that they didn't belong. It was time to reveal himself. Marcus walked to the back office where Diane was working on schedules. He knocked on the open door. "Got a minute?" he asked. Diane glanced up, annoyed at the interruption. "What is it, Mark?" "I'm busy. I need to talk to you about Karen." Diane sighed dramatically. "Let me guess. She's being tough on you?" "Look, that's just her way. She's our best server and has been here since day one. You need to earn her respect." "It's not about me," Marcus said, stepping into the office and closing the door behind him. "It's about how she treats customers differently based on their race." Diane's expression immediately hardened. "That's a serious accusation. Karen's not racist. She's just particular about giving the best service to our best customers." "And how does she determine who the best customers are?" Marcus challenged. "Because from what I've seen today, it has everything to do with the color of their skin." Diane leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms defensively. Look, Mark, you're new here. You don't understand the dynamics of this location. Our regular clientele has certain expectations. Expectations of not having to dine near black people. Marcus asked bluntly. That's not fair, Diane protested. We welcome everyone here. But you don't serve everyone equally, Marcus countered. And apparently, you're fine with a server telling a black employee to go back to Africa. Diane's eyes widened slightly. Karen said that to you? I'm sure she didn't mean it literally. She can be blunt sometimes, but... Stop, Marcus interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. Just stop making excuses. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet, extracting a business card that he placed on Diane's desk. She glanced down at it, her expression confused, then shocked as she read the name. Marcus Washington, founder and CEO, Southern Comfort Kitchen. Diane's face drained of color. You're... Yes, Marcus confirmed, removing his cap. I am. Diane seemed to shrink in her chair. Mr. Washington, I can explain. I'd like you to gather all the staff in the main dining room, Marcus said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Right now, Diane nodded frantically, jumping to her feet. Of course, right away, Mr. Washington. As she scurried out, Marcus took a moment to center himself. What he was about to do would affect many people's livelihoods, but allowing the current situation to continue would compromise everything he had built and believed in. Within 10 minutes, the entire staff had assembled in the dining room. The last customers had paid and left, so they had the space to themselves. Confused whispers filled the air as servers, kitchen staff, and bussers gathered, wondering what was happening. Karen stood near the front, arms crossed, looking annoyed at the interruption to closing procedures. What's this about? She demanded of Diane, who was nervously wringing her hands. Everyone, please, Diane called out, her voice higher than usual. I have an important announcement. We have a special visitor with us today. All eyes turned to Marcus as he stepped forward, positioned so everyone could see him. He had removed his cap and glasses, standing straight with the confident posture he typically carried in boardrooms and investor meetings. Hello, everyone, he began, his deep voice carrying easily through the room. My name is Marcus Washington. I founded Southern Comfort Kitchen 12 years ago, and I'm the CEO of this company. A collective gasp rippled through the assembled staff. Several employees exchanged wide-eyed glances. DeAndre straightened his posture, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. Jasmine's hand flew to her mouth in shock. Karen's reaction was the most dramatic. Her crossed arms dropped to her sides, and her face cycled through expressions, disbelief, then shock, then unmistakable fear. For those who don't know, Marcus continued, his voice steady and controlled. I spent today working alongside you as Mark, observing our operations firsthand. I wanted to understand why one of our formerly top-performing locations has been struggling with customer complaints and declining reviews. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the faces before him. Now I know. The silence in the room was deafening. No one moved. No one spoke. Southern Comfort Kitchen was built on a simple principle, Marcus said, beginning to pace slowly. That good food brings people together. All people. My grandmother taught me that a warm welcome and genuine hospitality know no color, no class distinction. That's the foundation of this business. He stopped and faced the group directly. Today, I witnessed behaviors that violate everything this company stands for. Karen took an involuntary step backward, as if physically recoiling from his words. I saw certain customers receiving preferential treatment, while others were neglected. Marcus continued. I heard coded language describing our black customers. I observed seating practices designed to make black diners less visible. Several staff members looked down, some in shame, others to avoid eye contact. And most disturbing of all, Marcus said, his voice growing quieter but more intense, I personally experienced racism when I was told to go back to Africa for simply questioning these practices. All eyes turned to Karen, who had gone pale. I wasn't. She stammered. Please don't insult us all by denying what everyone here has witnessed day after day, Marcus said firmly. The question isn't whether it happened. The question is how it's been allowed to continue. He turned to face Diane, who seemed to shrink under his gaze. As the manager of this location, you've enabled this behavior. Whether through active participation or willful blindness, you've allowed a culture of discrimination to flourish under your leadership. Diane's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Washington, I never intended. Intentions mean little compared to impact, Marcus interrupted. And the impact has been devastating to our customers, to our staff, and to our business. He turned back to address the entire group. Effective immediately, this location is closed. Another collective gasp. One of the younger servers began to cry quietly. For how long? Someone called out. That depends, Marcus replied. This restaurant will not reopen until it can embody the values Southern Comfort Kitchen was founded upon. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. I've already contacted our operations team. Tomorrow morning, they'll be here to begin what we're calling a cultural reset. This location will undergo a complete transformation, not just in management and staffing, but in its entire approach to service. Karen stepped forward, her shock giving way to indignation. You can't just shut us down based on one day's observation. You have no idea what we deal with here. I've given 15 years to this company. Marcus met her gaze steadily. Karen, your employment with Southern Comfort Kitchen is terminated, effective immediately. Karen's mouth fell open. You can't fire me. I'm a senior server. This place would fall apart without me. This place is already falling apart because of you, Marcus replied calmly. And yes, I can and am firing you. Discrimination violates both our company policy and federal law. Karen's face contorted with anger. This is ridiculous. I'll sue. You can't. Our HR director will provide you with your final paycheck and exit paperwork. Marcus continued, unfazed by her outburst. I suggest you leave now before you say something that further jeopardizes your severance package. As if on cue, the side door opened and a woman in a crisp business suit entered. Tamika Johnson, the regional HR director who had arranged Marcus's undercover placement. Karen looked from Marcus to Tamika, then back again, the full reality of her situation finally sinking in. Without another word, she grabbed her purse from a nearby table and stormed toward the exit. At the door, she paused and turned back. You'll regret this, she spat. Your precious restaurant will be out of business within a year. After the door slammed behind her, Marcus addressed the remaining staff again. I understand this is shocking and concerning for all of you. I want to be clear, not everyone will be losing their job. In fact, some of you have been doing extraordinary work under difficult circumstances. Relief visibly washed over several faces. Jasmine, Marcus said, turning to the young hostess. I observe how you tried to create a welcoming environment for all our guests, even when pressured to do otherwise. You found ways to give dignified service despite the culture around you. Jasmine blinked in surprise at being singled out. I just try to treat people right, she said quietly. Exactly, Marcus nodded. That's exactly what Southern Comfort Kitchen is about, which is why I'd like to offer you a promotion to front of house manager when we reopen. Jasmine's eyes widened. Me? But I've never managed before. You've shown more leadership in how you handle difficult situations today than some managers with years of experience, Marcus assured her. We'll provide training and support, but the integrity and judgment you've demonstrated can't be taught. He turned next to the kitchen. DeAndre, your commitment to quality and consistency, even during the chaos I witnessed today, was impressive. I know you've been trying to implement menu changes that honor traditional Southern cooking while adding your own creative touch. DeAndre straightened. Yes, sir. I've submitted some ideas, but they never seem to go anywhere. That stops now, Marcus said firmly. I'm promoting you to executive chef of this location. I want you to completely revamp our menu, bringing back the authentic flavors that made us successful while adding your own innovation. DeAndre's face broke into a wide grin. For real? I won't let you down, Mr. Washington. I know you won't, Marcus said with a smile, then addressed the group again. As for the rest of you, Tamika will be conducting individual interviews over the next few days. Be honest about what you've experienced and observed here. Those who demonstrate a commitment to our values will be offered positions when we reopen. You notice some of the staff exchanging worried glances. This isn't about punishment. It's about rebuilding something valuable that's been damaged. I'm not looking to place blame on everyone. I'm looking to create a fresh start with people who share our vision. A server near the back raised her hand hesitantly. What about Diane? Is she fired too? All eyes turned to the manager, who stood with her head bowed near the hostess stand. Marcus sighed. Diane, we'll discuss your future with the company privately. For now, you'll be on administrative leave while we assess your role in what's happened here. Diane nodded mutely, tears streaming down her face. I know this is a lot to process, Marcus continued, addressing everyone again. But I want you all to understand something important. What happened here isn't just about one racist server or poor management. It's about what we're willing to tolerate as a company and as individuals. He looked around the room, making eye contact with as many staff members as possible. When we stay silent in the face of discrimination, when we look the other way or make excuses, we become part of the problem. Today marks the end of that silence at Southern Comfort Kitchen. The room remained quiet, but the atmosphere had shifted. What had begun as shock and fear was transforming into something else. A cautious hope, perhaps, or at least a recognition that real change was coming. We'll close tonight for what we're calling emergency renovations, Marcus explained. The public won't know the full story, but we'll use this time to not just change who works here, but how we work. When we reopen, it won't just be with fresh paint and new menus. It will be with a renewed commitment to our founding values. He checked his watch. It's late, and you all have a lot to think about. Tamika will email each of you with interview times. For tonight, please complete your closing duties and then head home. As the staff dispersed, murmuring among themselves, DeAndre approached Marcus. Mr. Washington, can I ask you something? Of course, Marcus replied. Why did you come yourself? Why not send someone from corporate? Marcus considered the question. Because some things need to be seen firsthand. Reports and data can tell you what's happening, but not why or how. I needed to experience this as a customer and employee would. DeAndre nodded thoughtfully. I'm glad you did. And, I'm sorry, about what Karen said to you. That wasn't right. No, it wasn't, Marcus agreed. But your apology means something, even though you weren't the one who said it. It shows what kind of leader you'll be. After the staff had left, Marcus remained in the empty restaurant with Tamika, looking around at the space that had once been the pride of his company. It's worse than we thought, Tamika said quietly. Yes, Marcus agreed, but clearer too. Now we know exactly what we're dealing with. He walked to the large windows at the front of the restaurant and looked out at the street. Savannah was beautiful at night, the historic district illuminated by old-fashioned street lamps. Southern Comfort Kitchen had intentionally chosen locations in historically significant southern cities, places with complicated pasts but vibrant presence. You know, Marcus said reflectively, when I started this company, people told me I was crazy. A black man opening a southern cuisine restaurant chain in the Deep South? They said it would never work. Tamika nodded. I remember. But you proved them wrong. We proved them wrong. Marcus corrected her. But somewhere along the way, we lost sight of why we were doing this in the first place. It was never just about the food. It was about reclaiming and celebrating a culinary tradition that belongs to all Southerners, regardless of race. He turned back to face the empty dining room. What happened here is a betrayal of that vision, but it's also an opportunity to recommit to it, more openly and forcefully than before. What exactly are you thinking? Tamika asked. Marcus smiled, a determined glint in his eye. I'm thinking it's time for Southern Comfort Kitchen to make a statement. Not just with words, but with actions. Let's show the industry what inclusive hospitality really looks like. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind of activity at the Savannah location. True to his word, Marcus implemented a complete transformation of the restaurant. The physical renovations were the most visible change. New lighting, refreshed decor, an expanded kitchen, and a redesigned dining room that eliminated the preferred seating sections Karen had established. But the deeper changes were in the restaurant's operations and culture. DeAndre worked directly with Marcus to create a new menu that honored traditional Southern cooking while acknowledging its diverse influences. They added dishes that celebrated the African, Caribbean, and Native American contributions to Southern cuisine, complete with menu descriptions that told the story behind each recipe. Jasmine, in her new role as front-of-house manager, developed a service approach that emphasized genuine hospitality for all guests. Gone were the unwritten rules about who deserved attention and who didn't. Instead, she trained her team to recognize and appreciate the diversity of their customers, seeing it as an asset rather than an issue to be managed. After careful consideration and extensive discussions with HR, Marcus had ultimately decided to let Diane go. Her complicity in the discriminatory practices couldn't be overlooked, especially given her position of authority. But he ensured she received a fair severance package and job placement assistance, recognizing that she too had been a product of the toxic culture that had developed. Most significantly, Marcus implemented a company-wide diversity and inclusion initiative, starting with the Savannah location as a pilot program. All staff, from dishwashers to managers, participated in training that went beyond the typical corporate seminars to address real-world scenarios they might face in the restaurant. The day before the grand reopening, Marcus gathered the staff, a mix of returning employees and new hires, for a final meeting. "Tomorrow isn't just about opening our doors again," he told them, standing in the center of the transformed dining room. "It's about setting a new standard for what Southern Comfort Kitchen represents. Each of you has been chosen because you embody the values this company was founded on: genuine hospitality, respect for our culinary traditions, and a commitment to making every guest feel valued." He gestured to DeAndre and Jasmine, who stood proudly at the front of the group. "Your new leadership team has worked tirelessly to create an environment where excellence can flourish. Trust them, learn from them, and support each other." A young server raised her hand. "Mr. Washington, I heard some people in town talking. They're saying the restaurant closed because of health violations or financial problems. Will that hurt us when we reopen?" Marcus smiled. "An excellent question. No, it won't hurt us because we're going to tell the truth, our version of it, anyway. Tomorrow's reopening isn't just a regular business event. It's a statement." The staff exchanged curious glances. "Local media will be here," Marcus continued. "Food critics, community leaders, influencers, they've all been invited. I'll be giving a short speech explaining that we close for a cultural renovation to ensure that Southern Comfort Kitchen lives up to its name by providing comfort and welcome to all who walk through our doors." "You're going to talk about what happened with Karen?" another employee asked, sounding nervous. "Not specifically," Marcus assured them. "We won't be naming names or detailing incidents. But I will acknowledge that we discovered practices that didn't align with our values, and we took decisive action to address them. Transparency builds trust." He looked around at their faces, some excited, others a bit apprehensive. "This isn't just about one location or one incident. It's about who we are as a company. The stand we take here will ripple through all our restaurants." The reopening day dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the celebration Marcus had planned. By 11 a.m., a crowd had gathered outside the restaurant. Curious locals, media with cameras, and even a few loyal customers who had wondered about the sudden closure. Inside, the staff was buzzing with nervous energy. DeAndre's kitchen team performed final preparations on the new menu items. Jasmine walked the floor, making last-minute adjustments to table settings and calming the nerves of her servers. At precisely noon, Marcus stepped outside to address the waiting crowd. Cameras flashed and reporters held up microphones as he approached the podium that had been set up on the sidewalk. "Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the outdoor speakers. "I'm Marcus Washington, founder and CEO of Southern Comfort Kitchen. Today marks not just the reopening of our Savannah location, but a renewal of our commitment to the values this company was founded upon." The crowd quieted, listening intently. 3 weeks ago, I made the difficult decision to temporarily close this restaurant. Not because of financial troubles or health concerns, but because we discovered a disconnect between our company's mission and the reality of the guest experience here. He paused, making eye contact with several people in the crowd. Southern Comfort Kitchen was built on the belief that good food brings people together across all boundaries: race, class, background. My grandmother, whose recipes inspired our first menu, taught me that a true Southern welcome doesn't discriminate. It embraces. Murmurs rippled through the audience as people began to understand what he was talking about. What we found in this location was troubling. Certain guests received preferential treatment, while others were marginalized. Some customers were made to feel unwelcome based on the color of their skin. As a Black business owner, I found this especially painful, but I would have found it unacceptable regardless of my own identity. The reporters were scribbling frantically now, and several phones were raised to record his words. We could have made changes quietly. We could have handled this behind closed doors. But that would have been a missed opportunity to stand firmly for what we believe in. So today, as we reopen, we're doing so with complete transparency about why we closed and what we've done to ensure it never happens again. Marcus gestured to the restaurant behind him. Inside, you'll find a transformed space, not just in decor but in spirit. Our new executive chef, DeAndre Williams, has created a menu that celebrates the diverse influences that have shaped Southern cooking. Our front-of-house team, led by Jasmine Taylor, has been trained in a service approach that honors every guest equally. And our entire staff has participated in a pioneering program to ensure that genuine hospitality, not just polite service, is at the heart of everything we do. He looked directly into the news cameras. To any guest who may have felt unwelcome or disrespected in our restaurant before, I personally apologize. That was not the Southern Comfort Kitchen I founded, and it is not the Southern Comfort Kitchen we are reopening today. I invite you to come back and experience the difference. The crowd erupted in applause. Several community leaders in attendance nodded approvingly. In closing, Marcus continued once the applause had died down. I want to be clear that this isn't just about one location. The changes we've implemented here will be rolled out across all Southern Comfort Kitchen restaurants. We are committed to being a company where everyone, staff and guests alike, feels valued, respected, and truly welcome. He smiled broadly. And now, I invite you all to come inside and taste what real Southern comfort is all about. As the doors opened and people flooded in, Marcus stepped back to watch. The transformed space was immediately filled with energy and conversation. DeAndre's sample plates were being passed among the guests, drawing exclamations of delight. Jasmine moved through the crowd with confidence, greeting everyone with the same warm welcome. A local news reporter approached Marcus. "Mr. Washington, this is an unusual approach. Most businesses try to downplay internal problems, not highlight them in a press conference. Aren't you concerned about potential backlash?" Marcus considered the question. "I'm more concerned about building a business that reflects my values than one that merely projects an image. Authenticity matters. Our customers, particularly younger ones, can tell the difference between genuine commitment and corporate messaging." The reporter nodded, jotting down his response. "And the staff member or members responsible for the discriminatory practices, can you tell us what happened to them?" "Personnel matters remain confidential," Marcus replied firmly. "What I can say is that we've made necessary changes to ensure our team embodies our values. But today isn't about dwelling on past problems. It's about celebrating solutions." As the event continued, Marcus noticed a familiar face in the crowd, the Black mother from the family that Karen had neglected during his undercover visit. She was there with her husband and children, looking around with cautious interest. Marcus approached them. "Thank you for coming today. I'm Marcus Washington, the owner." The father nodded. "We remember you, though you looked a bit different last time. Word got around town about what happened here. We wanted to see for ourselves." "I'm glad you did," Marcus replied sincerely. "Your experience here was part of what prompted these changes. I hope you'll give us another chance to show you what Southern Comfort Kitchen is really about." The mother smiled. "We're willing to try. Our daughter actually insisted we come. She said the mac and cheese was worth it, even with the poor service last time." Their young daughter, about 10 years old, looked up at Marcus with curious eyes. Is it true you own all the restaurants? Marcus smiled and crouched down to her level. I do. And you know what? Customers like you are my bosses. If you're not happy, then I'm not doing my job right. The girl grinned. Cool. A server approached, one of the new hires, with the same warm greeting she'd given every table. There was no hint of the differential treatment Marcus had witnessed before. As the family settled in, he moved on, making his way through the crowded restaurant. Near the kitchen, he found DeAndre expediting orders, calmly directing his team as tickets poured in. Despite the pressure, the atmosphere was focused but positive, a far cry from the tension-filled kitchen of 3 weeks ago. How's it going, chef? Marcus asked. DeAndre looked up, a flash of pride crossing his face at the title. Smooth so far, Mr. Washington. The new menu items are getting great feedback. That oxtail stew recipe from your grandmother is a hit. She'd be proud to see you making it, Marcus told him. Not just of the food, but of what you're building here. In the following weeks, the story of Southern Comfort Kitchen's cultural renovation gained national attention. Food industry publications praised the company's transparency and decisive action. Civil rights organizations commended their approach to addressing discrimination. Most importantly, customers responded. The Savannah location saw its highest revenue numbers in years. But for Marcus, the most significant measure of success came 6 months later, when he received the results of a company-wide employee satisfaction survey. The Savannah location, once a troubled outlier, now had the highest scores in the entire chain. Comments praised the supportive management, clear values, and positive work environment. One anonymous response particularly stood out. For the first time in my restaurant career, I feel like who I am is an asset, not something I have to apologize for or hide. SCK doesn't just talk about respect, they live it every day with every customer and every employee. During his next visit to the Savannah restaurant, Marcus arrived unannounced. Not in disguise this time, but without warning. He slipped into a booth near the back and observed the lunch service in full swing. What he saw brought a smile to his face. The dining room was diverse, both in staff and customers. Conversations and laughter filled the air. Servers moved efficiently between tables, giving each guest the same attentive service. From his vantage point, he could see into the kitchen where DeAndre was training a new line cook, exhibiting the same patience and encouragement that had been shown to him. Jasmine spotted him first, her face lighting up with recognition. She approached his table, professional but warm. Mr. Washington, we weren't expecting you today. Just thought I'd drop in, he replied with a smile. Sometimes the best visits are the unexpected ones. Jasmine nodded, understanding the reference to his undercover experience. Well, you picked a good day. We're busy, but everything's running smoothly. I can see that, Marcus said, genuinely impressed. The atmosphere is completely transformed. That's because the people are transformed, Jasmine replied thoughtfully. Or maybe it's that now people can just be themselves without fear. Either way, it makes all the difference. As Marcus enjoyed his meal, expertly prepared and served with genuine hospitality, he reflected on the journey that had brought them here. What had begun as a crisis had transformed into an opportunity, not just to fix one restaurant, but to realign an entire company with its founding values. The racist incident that might have remained hidden had he not experienced it personally had ultimately led to a stronger, more authentic business. It was a powerful reminder that sometimes the most painful experiences can lead to the most meaningful growth for individuals and organizations alike. When he finished his meal, Marcus left a generous tip and a note for his server. Perfect service. This is what Southern Comfort is all about. As he walked out into the Savannah sunshine, he paused to look back at the restaurant he had almost lost, now thriving as a true reflection of his original vision. The sign above the door caught the light, the words Southern Comfort Kitchen gleaming in the afternoon sun. Beneath it, a new tagline had been added during the renovation, where everyone belongs at the table. Nothing, Marcus thought, could better describe what he had set out to build all those years ago, and what they had finally, truly created here. As he drove away, his phone buzzed with a notification. The day's customer reviews were coming in. 5 stars across the board, with comment after comment praising not just the food, but the warm, inclusive environment. Marcus smiled. This was the real measure of success. Not just financial profit, but the creation of a space where good food truly brought all people together, just as his grandmother had taught him it should. The undercover boss had revealed an ugly truth. But from that truth, something beautiful had grown. A restaurant that truly lived up to its name, offering genuine comfort and welcome to all who entered its doors.